Are you cruising through life not always knowing what direction you were headed? Let Live on Purpose with Dr. Paul Jenkins be your guide. Live on Purpose will give you insights into your life and show you how you can become the driver and captain of it. No more aimless wandering. By learning the principles that govern happiness and wealth, you will be able to make personal progress that you have only dreamed possible. And now, here's your host, the shrink who expands your life, Dr. Paul.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live on Purpose Radio. This is Dr. Paul, the shrink who expands your life, bringing you another episode of Live on Purpose Radio. You are already aware, if you've been following this show, that I really love to go out there and collect inspiring people and inspiring stories. And some of those people happen to be authors who are sharing their stories, either fiction or through their autobiographies or whatever it is they're putting out there. But this idea of stories has really been an important one for me as I go out there and gather these inspiring stories. And I found somebody, I kind of found her a long time ago, actually. Annette, I think I knew you when you were a little kid.
Probably about 11 or 12.
About 11 or 12 years old. And I've watched this person just blossom into a person who is making a difference in this world. And I think you probably were at 11 or 12 too, but just at a different level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is Annette Lyon. And Annette is an author. She's published several books, the most recent of which we're going to talk about a little bit today. I used to know her as Annette Lyon.
That's right.
And I think some of your books carry the name Annette Lyon.
At least on the bio page.
On the bio page.
Yeah,
because you still claim your Luthi roots, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what, actually, ironically, why I did not give my daughters middle names, because I wanted them to have the Lyon name. They can carry that on, too, just the way I carry on Luthi.
That's right. And our connection goes back to a time when I was living in Finland, and I was serving as a missionary for my church, and your parents were the ones who were presiding over that mission.
And you were one of my dad's assistants, and so I got to know you a lot better than many of the others.
I got to know the fam a little bit because I was right there.
So in some ways, you're like a big brother to me at the time. It was great.
So it's kind of neat to see that, well, and you and I were commenting just the other day that life accelerates.
Oh, man, yes.
Oh, and you see my son over here who's running the podcast, and he's about the size I was when you first met me. And
I have my second child as the age I was when I knew you, so it's a little unnerving.
So it just goes like crazy, and I've enjoyed those commercials on TV that says life comes at you fast.
Yeah.
And wow, it really does.
It really does.
It really does. And it's just a pleasure for me to welcome you to Live on Purpose Radio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's just fun to have you here. And you've got a story that I want to help you share. Yeah. And it's not the story in your books, although those are cool too.
I think so.
But it's the story behind the books. It's the story about Annette Lyon and what it is that, well, the journey you've been on. And you've got a blog where you talk about this. Mm-hmm. You didn't just wake up one day and think, hey, I got nothing else to do. I think I'm going to go write a book.
Oh, no. In fact, I was already writing in about second grade. It was something I've always known I wanted to do. It was very deliberate.
So let's put this together a little bit. You have, as you just shared, you have always had an interest in writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This has been a passion.
Always.
Or a desire or a dream of yours forever, as long as you can remember.
Pretty much, yeah.
As long as you've known English.
Yeah, it was Beverly Cleary's The Mouse and the Motorcycle that got me going.
Oh, there you go.
So my first story was about a mouse.
And I think most of us can relate to that one.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so I know a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people. You've probably heard this yourself. As people get to know you and they say, oh, I wish I could write a book, or it would be so nice if I had the time to do that.
Or another one is, oh, someday I plan to write a book when my kids are all grown up.
Right.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
When it's convenient.
And the time just lands in their lap magically.
So I would love to just turn the mic over to you for a little bit to introduce us to this journey that you've been on, and it started as a child. Mm-hmm. Talk to us just a little bit and share what's behind all of this.
Kind of, well, it is, I could go on and on for hours, but I won't. The basic gist is, you said, I've always wanted to be a writer. Mm-hmm. I took creative writing classes in high school and in college, and I was writing stuff with a good friend of mine. We co-authored a screenplay for a class, and then we wrote a novel together. And and then I got married, and I was telling my husband about it. Someday I'm going to be published, and someday I will have a book out. And,
you were in someday land, huh?
Well, yeah, because I was writing, but it's at that point it wasn't taking the action to make it happen. Beyond that, and then my husband actually said, "Well, do you know how to get published? And have you ever submitted something?" And no. And how do you expect to ever be published? Okay, point taken. And at that point, he gave me a challenge. And, so I can thank him to a great extent for me actually taking those first steps. He said, okay, I challenge you. By Monday, you must have your first things ever submitted in the mail. And I was working on a short story, and I thought, okay. I was hurrying and revising, and I gave it to my sister for some feedback. And I thought, okay, I'll mail it off by Monday. I'll make final changes over the weekend. And then I realized Monday was Labor Day, and the post office was closed. And I was bargaining for one extra day with my husband, and he says, "No, that's our deal. We had a deal,
the commitment."
And I was, oh dang! So I scrambled and I got it mailed off on Saturday. But even then, I kind of knew that short story didn't really fit the publication I was sending it to. But to me, it was still important to make a step, make that
just
first
to do
it. And sure enough, I collected my first rejection slip, but I almost celebrated because I thought this is my first step toward however many steps it will take to get published. And because rejection is just part of the process. So I consider that was Labor Day weekend of 1994. And after that, I started going to workshops to learn the publishing industry. What is a query letter, and how do you find out about publishers and editors and what they want, and how do you approach them, and what do all these things mean? And so I started querying magazines and publishers, and so
okay,
I was
time out, Annette.
Yes,
time out. Here's the thing: you just breezed over something that is huge.
Okay,
huge. You got your first rejection letter. Isn't this the thing that most people fear? It's like one of the things that keeps them from moving forward is their fear of rejection. Oh,
absolutely. And I know some writers who purposely do things. They'll burn their rejection letters. Or I know a friend who she'll cut them up in little tiny pieces and throw them into the garbage disposal and watch them go down and whatever. For me, I keep them in a file. Because for me, it's fun to see something that was rejected that eventually got published. And I look at that letter and kind of laugh and go, ha ha ha, I did it anyway. I did it anyway. But that's what you have to do as a writer, especially. You have to go in knowing that not everything you do will be accepted by everyone, and it's not personal. Sometimes what you submit to an editor can say, this is great, it's not for our house. Or this magazine article, you did well, but it's not something we just published something like it, or whatever. Sure. So it's not necessarily a reflection of your skill. It's not a personal attack. But rejection is part of the process. It's not easy, and it gets harder when it's a book instead of a short story.
Okay, now this is part of the process. You and I both know a lot of authors.
Oh, yeah. I know many.
Do you know any authors who have not been rejected?
At some point, no. I know some authors that have been lucky enough to get accepted their first shot, but then down the road they will end up with other rejections down the road. I'm not
sure that's the best way to start out, actually.
In fact, no, I've actually seen authors they take it for granted, and then when they do run into a rejection or a speed bump of some kind, it devastates them.
It's
they start
harder
to crack.
for them to handle it.
And so it took me 8 years to get my first book out. And so I don't take it for granted 1 second. And when I do get those rejections, I don't think they shatter me as much as others probably. And I relish the moments. I can see my book and go, yeah, I earned that.
So if it's part of the process, and if any of you listeners are out there thinking, okay, I might actually take some steps and write that book, because some of you are thinking that you have a book.
I hope so.
And I'm one of those people.
Good.
I haven't published my book yet.
Yet.
So that's why I've called you back into my life, so I can get inspired here.
Great.
But here's the thing about the rejection. If it is part of the process, then get busy collecting it.
Exactly. That's why I have my file. And I still have that very first one for that very reason.
That's
because
beautiful.
I knew it was almost like a paving stone. It was the first step. And however many steps there were, I took one. I took one, and then the second, and then the third, and however many between me and success,
That's right.
Just start knocking them off.
And if it takes 8 years to publish your first book. When do you want to start that 8 years?
Yeah, well, the 8 years are going to pass no matter what you do.
That's
so at
right.
the end of them, you may as well have done the work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you haven't, then you're still where you were before.
And now you can walk into the bookstore and you can select books from a number of authors, including
myself.
Yourself.
Yeah, and that's been fun, especially to show my kids, because when they finally got to see my name on a book, they went, "Oh, Mom doesn't just type a lot." And now I'm cool, especially because I know some of their favorite writers personally. That's actually more cool than the fact that I wrote my own books.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they still see you as just Mom.
Although that was one fascinating thing is just this last school year, my son, who was in 9th grade, he had to read a historical novel for his English class. Mm-hmm. And so I picked him up from school one day and he says, "I guess I should read one of your books." Because 4 of mine are historical. And my gut reaction was, oh no, he's 14. He's not my target audience. And he read it, laughed, and suddenly he understood a piece of Mom that he never understood before. And it's been great.
Wow. And that's one of those sweet little bonuses that you get along the way.
Right, yeah.
We're going to continue this conversation in just a few minutes. Thank you for joining me for the Live on Purpose radio podcast. It is truly an honor to be a part of your prosperity team. Please visit my website, drpaul.org, to get connected with other tools for you and your family. There you will find links to my weekly e-zine, Empower, Harnessing the Power of the Mind, and to the free Parental Power teleconference that I host every week with my wife, Vicki. You can also check out upcoming events or pick up powerful information products. Feel free to contact me directly with questions, comments, or to book me for your company or private event. Email me through drpaul@liveonpurposeradio.com.
This is Kirk Weasler to tell you about morebetterbooks.com. Morebetterbooks.com is where you can find more better books for a more better life. Not only that, let me tell you about some of the very fun and cool select titles on morebetterbooks.com. You'll want to get a copy of The Dog Poop Initiative. This best-smelling book could change your life forever. It certainly changed the lives of thousands of Boeing employees, as well as school teachers, parents, leaders across the United States and in Israel and in Germany. And you can get your own copy at morebetterbooks.com. Whoa, that's not all. What about The Cookie Thief? This classic tale told in a rhyming format, fully illustrated with very fun hidden messages. Pick up a copy now today on morebetterbooks.com. Other great titles there: Finding Your Pathway to Mastery, Beyond Illusions, Make It Great. These titles are only available on morebetterbooks.com. Go to morebetterbooks.com today and begin to have a more better life and live that life on purpose.
So, Annette, as we're talking about this journey that you've had, there's all kinds of interesting ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And I think from the outside, sometimes people will look at someone who's already got something that they want, mm-hmm. and they'll think, oh, it's so easy for them. They are so lucky. This, whatever.
Right.
You've been there before.
Oh, yeah. I've been on both sides of that.
Right. And now you've got a perspective that is different from what you had before. Mm-hmm. And I was noticing on your blog, as you were sharing some of this journey, you compared it to giving birth and having children. And maybe that analogy gets used a lot, but talk just a little bit about what some of your insights are related to that.
Yeah, well, I think I have a slightly different take on it to some extent because, you, as a writer, you say, oh, well, each book is my baby and that kind of thing. And it is scary because, you put your heart out there, and if it gets rejected, it's like someone saying, oh, your baby's ugly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being on the flip side of a lot of writers or aspiring writers assume that once you have that contract, once you've got that book on the shelf, that you've made it and your whole life is unicorns and ponies and rainbows, and they don't realize that that's actually just the beginning of a new journey and a new set of challenges and new mountains to climb and all of that. And one of my writer friends says is that she lives in if only land, where I think I'll be happy if only I reach this, and then she reaches that and realizes, okay, I had one book published, but I actually want to have 5 books published. Or what if I want to get on the bestseller list of this particular, whatever it is, there's always something else to grab for. So I've had some people come to me and say, well, aren't you satisfied with this or that? So many people would be so thrilled to have what you have and don't ever complain about this or that or the other. And what it comes down to is, like I said, it took 8 years to get published. I don't take it for granted at all. I'm thrilled with where I'm standing at the top of a mountain peak many people would love to be at, and the view is fantastic. That said, it doesn't mean that there aren't new hurdles and new challenges, and so that's, I compared it to motherhood in that sense, because there's a woman I knew who she was infertile for many, many years, and anytime she heard mothers complaining about the potty training or their crayon on the walls or whatever, sleepless nights, she would you could just tell that she was really annoyed, because she would give anything to be washing that crayon off the wall. To have that experience, and to be dealing with those things. And then she later ended up having quadruplets. And and I had the sneaking suspicion that, even though she wanted those children and treasured them above all else, I had a sneaking suspicion that she had her sleepless nights and wished so badly she could get some rest. And maybe she complained and whined a couple of times. And I imagine potty training 4 boys all at once must have been really interesting. So I compared it to that, where, because what you want so desperately is one thing, and you can get it and love it and cherish it and be so grateful for it. But that doesn't mean the journey is over and the problems go away. And that's very much how book publishing is too.
This I'll be happy when kind of an attitude.
That's no way to live, is it? Yeah.
Well, apparently it is a way to live. A lot of people do.
It's not a good way,
but it has a predictable outcome, and that outcome is frustration and disappointment,
discontent,
and discontent.
Exactly.
Now, I'm a fan of discontent to the extent that it motivates you to go create something,
create action, right? To do something.
When you experience discontent, you always have a choice, and that choice is: am I going to be a victim or am I going to be an agent?
Right.
And the victim will sit around blaming and, wishing things were different. And the agent will say, well, if not this, then what?
Right. What's my next step?
What's my next step?
Right.
What can I create?
Right.
What can I make from the stuff that has shown up in my life? Right. And I think this was triggered by some comments that you got on your blog about, you were frustrated about some deadline or some...
whatever it was.
Yeah. And people would see that and say, hey, at least you have a publisher and a contract.
At least you have a book coming out. Right. Exactly.
So it's the same thing that you shared with this mother who said, well, at least you have a child. And I get people in my office all the time who are having frustrations with their children. That's not a new thing for me.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, they would never trade their children for anything.
Right.
And the view from here is fantastic.
Exactly.
Like you said.
Well, and then I've seen other mothers who say, oh, well, you don't have teenagers. You don't know how difficult it is, or whatever it is. It's like comparing yourself to someone else's problems. You don't know what they're going through, and it's useless. Everyone has their own wagon that they're pulling. So just take yours and move on.
I shared a little thought on my blog not too long ago, as I received some feedback from someone who said, "Oh, you are so lucky to have a job that you love."
As if that just happened.
Yeah, I was reading a book called When Turtles Fly. It's by Nikki Stone, who's an Olympic gold medalist, and she shared a bunch of stories about successful Olympians and other people. And she had a similar comment. She said, I don't see how this is luck. I created this.
Yeah, I made this happen.
I chose this.
Right.
And that's what you've done.
It's been, a long road, but it's very deliberate, even to things to the point of, I will write 2,000 words today. I will. Well, and that was one thing, is that I've known some aspiring writers who will set goals that they have no control over. I will be published by the time I am 30, or I will, or whatever it is. But those decisions are in someone else's hands. But you can say, I will finish this manuscript by April. I will revise it by August, and I will submit it to this many people by this point. Those are things you have control over.
Yes.
So then that way the frustration level is different, because you can knock off your own goals and your own steps that you personally have accomplished. So today I wrote 2,000 words, or I finished this chapter, or whatever it is. And that's something that then you feel good about, no matter what somebody else does to you.
Right. That's a real key to success, I think. Setting the goals in the areas of what you control, and be very clear about what you do and what you don't.
And that's really tricky in publishing too, because it feels so personal when you do get rejections and when you do run into brick walls. Yeah.
So I'm wondering what Well, I think I cut you off earlier as you were sharing this journey that you went through, because I got so enamored with that rejection idea.
The rejection issue, yeah.
A huge issue.
Yeah.
But I cut you off too, and you were just going on to share a little bit more about how once you got that first rejection, it's like you were really playing the game now.
Yeah, that's when I got serious about the game. Yeah.
This became more than a someday thing for you.
This will happen at some point, and I'm going to make it happen.
So then you embarked on an intentional process to create for yourself the experiences and to put together the teams and the resources and the knowledge base and everything else that would be necessary for you to move forward with purpose.
Right.
What else would you like to share about that part of the process?
I call it my apprenticeship, because I really had to learn the craft as best I could. I started going to writing conferences. I subscribed to Writer's Digest magazine. My subscription still has not lapsed, and it never will. I started buying writing books that were about the writing process. I joined the League of Utah Writers, went to monthly meetings. I was on the board of our chapter for 3 years, and learning to network with other people and meet other writers. And I joined a critique group. Which was the best thing I ever did, because that was absolutely terrifying too. The first 8 months I was in the group, I'd read my work aloud and my heart would be in my throat and I would be shaking, and getting that feedback, live in front of your face was terrifying. But now I've been in that group for over 10 years, and we can shred each other's work, and yet nobody's feelings are hurt because we all know we're there. We're such good friends. I trust them with my life. And now we started out as all aspiring writers. All of us are now published several times over. We all have, many of us have won awards. And it's because we all have worked together, specifically meeting at least twice a month, if not weekly, to make that happen.
So the thing I want to point out about this is it's not about writing. For you it is.
For me it is, yeah.
Because that's the particular content that you do.
Right.
Okay, but the process here is to create experiences for yourself in which you begin to network with others. You call it your apprenticeship.
Huge. Right.
Who are you going to learn from?
Yeah, I had to learn from going to conferences and learning from people who had already been there. And even members of my critique group were huge, as I learned from them, and they learned just watching each other, one person critique another person, and learning how to give feedback and take feedback. That was huge. Reading books on all of those things. I had to find mentors and learn from them. Absolutely.
So find the people who are already playing this game. Whatever your game is, if it's writing. Did an interview several months ago with a dear friend of mine who's a master in Taekwondo. Okay, different game from writing, but it's the same concept.
Principle, absolutely.
Find the masters. Allow yourself to be humble enough to learn from them, because obviously they know something you don't. Especially if they've already accomplished some things.
Right, and you can learn, do things, not make the same mistakes that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least put some context around those mistakes as you make them.
Right.
And then begin to network and get with other people who are also playing this game. Provide support, receive support.
Right.
These are the principles that are going to assist anyone, whatever your game is.
And the support network that I have now, I'm part of a writers guild that's more than 100 members strong now, and some of my best friends in the world are in that group, and they support me, and we cheer each other on and cry with each other, and it's been the best thing for me.
For sure. Excellent. We got more fun stuff coming.
This is Shay Larson, IdeaOrbit.com, with the World of Ideas Report. Sometimes $1 million idea has been right by you your entire life. For two London-based entrepreneurs, the idea was right on their feet. What do you get when you cross a sticker and a sneaker? The answer is a big idea that is taking off in Europe. The founders of a UK company called Sneak Art are allowing teenagers to design their own shoes by selling them stickers that decoratively redefine the style of the shoe. They have stickers that fit just about any style of shoe, and the process is simple. Tapping into the natural desire that most teenagers have to stand out, this idea is stepping up to the challenge. Sneak art is becoming a new trend in fashion and is showing once again that a simple and successful idea could be stuck on anyone. Congratulations to the Sneak Art Company for a high-stepping, fast-sticking idea. This is Shay Larson, IdeaOrbit.com, with the World of Ideas Report.
I've got a great idea. Wouldn't you like to know? You probably can't bear it, so I guess I'll have to share it. I thought of it a moment.
In a time of drastic change, it is the learners who inherit the future. The learned usually find themselves equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer.
So I've considered on a couple of my shows that I had to just leave the mics rolling during the breaks. Because we come up with some pretty good stuff. You know what? You're describing a process that exactly mirrors what I have heard from so many successful people playing so many different games. Mm-hmm. And the principles are, I was going to say surprisingly, but it doesn't even surprise me anymore. Consistent.
They're consistent, absolutely. Yeah, I believe that.
And the context just doesn't matter that much. And one of the things you identified as you described getting involved with these networks and gathering some mentors and coaches who could actually teach you this game, mm-hmm. which you already loved, you were still a white belt,
right.
as my Taekwondo friend said.
Yeah. Yep.
And you got to do all the white belt stuff in order to move up.
Right.
And some of the things you get to do terrify you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Talk about the role of facing your fears.
Oh, heavens. Yeah, so I remember some of my greatest fears was when I first joined that critique group. Reading my work out loud absolutely was terrifying. It took me months to reach the point where I could read out loud without my voice shaking and my whole my whole body just trembling and my heart racing in my chest. Mm-hmm. But that was probably one of the biggest things, and also just putting your work out there for rejection, because most likely it will be rejected first before you ever get accepted. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely terrifying. But at the same time, when you have faced those fears and come out on the other side, and you're stronger and you're better and you've learned, you're no longer that white belt. And mm-hmm. and it's kind of fun. I remember recently opening up an old file of something I had worked on probably 15 years ago. I thought was good at the time. I read it and just cringed, and my gut reaction was just, oh, I was such a horrible writer. And then I stopped and went, wait, I can recognize what is wrong because of how much I have grown over all these years. And I think that's one thing a lot of people writers and other people playing whatever games, as you said, don't recognize, is you do have to put in that time. That you almost, some people expect success out of the gate, not realizing that doctors have to spend years and years and years in school, and then they're licensed. Mm-hmm. So if you put the same amount of work into whatever game you're doing, then you can have that success. It's not going to happen overnight.
So these two things go hand in hand, really. There's a work ethic, and you know what, Annette? This is a natural law. Mm-hmm. It's a law of physics. Yeah. That work has to happen to change things from one state to another.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact,
it's an Newtonian whatever.
In physics, that's the definition of work. It's the force that's required to move something from one state to another. And you can't do it without that work. And that goes hand in hand with facing things that will terrify you. The number one barrier to people's success and prosperity in this world is fear.
Oh, I believe that.
You believe that?
And sometimes even the fear of success. I know some people are so afraid
Sure.
of succeeding that they don't act. And as a writer myself, even once I've got that book published, then I'm expected to go promote it. And so having a book signing where that sounds like really fun, but people walk in the store and they deliberately walk the other direction because they don't want to talk to you. So book signing used to be really terrifying. When I would be asked to speak at events, that would be because writing, you're in your own little bubble by your keyboard and it's all by yourself and it's this happy little world that you've created. And suddenly you have to leave and dress up and talk to the huge groups. That's completely terrifying, or it used to be, until you can work past that. So there's always new fears, but you can't progress unless you face them.
You know what? This social aspect, let's just go there for a minute. Because whatever your passion is, and for you, Annette, it's writing and sharing stories that inspire people in different ways. Whatever your passion is, obviously has some benefit to you personally.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why you love to do it.
Right.
One of the keys, though, to succeeding is doing what you love for those who love what you do. And that's not everybody. You notice that?
Yeah.
In fact, it's not even most of the people.
Right. Yeah.
So this book signing idea, you go out there and you're saying, hey, everybody, here I am, and here's my baby.
Yeah, I think if you feel like a used car salesman, please buy my book. Please, please. Yeah.
Now, isn't it also true that some people will come to your book signing and they're just starstruck?
It took years to reach that point, to be honest, because
you weren't a star before
I wasn't
that.
a star, I know. But I actually remember the exact book signing I was at and which store I was in and everything. When I have these little business cards that I'll hand out to people, customers, and give them a 1 or 2 sentence little blurb. Here's my book, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll walk away so they don't feel pressured. And I remember the first time ever I handed over a card and they said, oh yeah, I've read all your books. I love them. And I stared at them and went, I seriously wanted to go, you're kidding, right? Can I come to your house and see your bookshelf? No way. Because it was so bizarre. I had done all this work and finally someone knew who I was. And it's been so fun since. Every so often I'll still get that, like, wow, I love all your books. So I didn't realize that was you, or whatever it is. And it feels really good, to be honest, to finally reach that point.
Well, yeah, that's the part that you love. You don't love the part about people who don't like your stuff.
Yeah, and getting bad reviews and that kind of thing. Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people who aren't interested, or the people who don't want to. But you know what? They're not the ones that you're writing for.
You're right. Yeah, they're not.
Truly.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid of their opinions, then you're not going to write for the people who really value what you do.
Yeah, it paralyzes you if you think too far into, well, will I please this person or that person, or what will this person think of it? In fact, my new book does go into some pretty, uncomfortable territory as far as life problems. And there was a moment or two where I thought, I wonder if this will hurt so-and-so's feelings, because I deal with a similar topic that they might be struggling with in their life. And then I had to say, no, stop. I need to write this honestly and genuinely as my characters would experience it, not fear what anyone else will think or whatever. And the result has been a much more powerful book, I think, than it would have been had I allowed myself to be paralyzed.
Along those lines, Annette, I have found that people are really craving authenticity. They don't want the superficial, phony stuff.
Right, yeah.
But they want something that really speaks to them,
right,
at a true, authentic, genuine level.
Definitely.
And that's risky.
It is, but and that's ironically, this is Band of Sisters is definitely my most real book in that sense, and which again was scary because I had never written anything like it. Most of my other books are much happier, and this was in that way. It was scary to write. I had no idea what the response would be, but so many people have said that very thing. It is so authentic. It is real, and they said thank you for doing that, even if I cried.
So you've introduced it. Let's talk about this. Is your most recent book, and this was just published
in March.
Yeah, I knew it was
pretty
within
recent.
about a month or two, and it's called Band of Sisters. Now, this is a novel which is based on. Well, you share it.
It's the idea is it's about 5 women whose husbands are all deployed together in Afghanistan. And so the husband's idea, there's a lieutenant colonel his wife is one of them. She's the oldest. She's an empty nester grandmother. And he says, would you kind of take care of these 4 other women? Because deployment's tough and you know that. And so get together and support one another. And she's like, okay, whatever. And so they get together weekly for these lunches. And at first that's what it starts out as, is, well, our husbands know each other, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, even though one is 55 and another one is 20 and they range in between, and they all have different problems and life circumstances, they turn into this great support network. And it really is. I had my critique group get mad at me when I kept calling it my deployment book, because they said, no, this is really about the power of women friendships. And that's really what it boils down to. So, yeah.
And so the context of this is that their husbands have been deployed to Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere.
Right.
And that's what gives them the reason to network with each other.
Exactly, yeah. And it's that, and the very first chapter is about a woman who's hesitant to even go into that first lunch, and she almost doesn't. But then at the end, she starts realizing that, and all of them realize that, you may not have seen the so-and-so or so-and-so as a potential friend and support, but guess what? You can find those mentors and those supports and strengths in surprising places.
It's interesting too how we approach things like that, and I think we can use the content of your book to talk about this other issue. And you and I chatted briefly about this, how we always want to compare, or we show up thinking that everybody's judging us, and usually that's because we're judging them.
Right, exactly.
And so we assume that they must be judging us too. And on the surface, that's what creates some of the fears or the hesitancies for people to actually get together and network.
Right, because they're assuming
support for each other.
Other assumptions exist where they may not. Yeah.
And so you've taken this on in your book, and I think illustrated how that happens
very much
as these women come together and ultimately support each other. But at first, they've got all of those typical fears. And they'll judge one person. Brenda in particular will look at Nora and say, "Oh, Nora's all put together." She'd freak out if she saw my kitchen. In the end, we see Nora's side of the picture and realize her life isn't a bowl of cherries either, and she doesn't have it together like everyone assumes. So it's comparison's not a good thing. Everybody's got their package.
Everybody does.
We can probably do something with that, Annette. We'll come right back to that.
Raising kids is one of the most challenging and rewarding experiences we can have in life. Your children didn't come with an owner's manual, so it's up to you to learn whatever will assist you in your role as a mom or a dad. Join me and my husband, Dr. Paul, for a free weekly discussion about all of the hot topics in parenting. Listen to what others are saying about these calls.
By applying the things I've learned through the Parental Power calls, I'm finally becoming the mom I always thought I would be.
I really like to use Parental Power as kind of like a reference book. So as I have concerns with my parenting, I like to be able to look up on the blog and then listen to whatever podcast seems closely related. So I like the variety of topics, the variety of age groups that are addressed.
I'm on the Parental Power calls as often as I possibly can because I know I'm going to come away with something I can apply to being a parent that very day.
Let us join your parenting team through Parental Power. Just send an email to Dr. Paul at liveonpurposeradio.com to register for the live calls. Or just check us out first through the link at drpaul.org. All of the previous calls are posted on our blog site, where you can also add your own input. Let's team up to start parenting on purpose.
You know, in today's world, people have become much more conscious of their health and wellness. Finding new and effective ways to combat the effects of disease, aging, and poor nutrition is more important than it ever has been as we look to improve our own life and the lives of those we love. Hi, I'm Micah Kagi, and a few short years ago I discovered a company called Kyani. Kyani is a rapidly growing nutritional supplement company that is marketing in over 20 countries. Kyani's products combine the nutritional benefits of well-known superfoods with Nobel Prize-winning research and breakthrough science. Not only does Kyani help to improve health and wellness of families, but through the amazing business opportunity that it offers, people like me have been able to create financial freedom. Kayani has the power to change your life, regardless of where you are or what your needs may be. Whether you are new to network marketing or a seasoned veteran, you will find that Kayani has what you've been looking for. A well-financed, growing company with proven management to generate immediate income and the potential to allow normal people like you and I to succeed if we are willing to put forth the time and effort.
Kayani is a proud sponsor of Live on Purpose Radio. To learn more or to join our exciting team, please visit the website drpaul.kayani.net. That's drpaul.kayani.net. Having fun at Live on Purpose Radio today. You know, Annette, we've got one more segment left. I think there's one piece of your journey that we haven't really talked about enough yet.
What's that?
And that is the success.
Because
there was a time when you've got your little file of rejection letters, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you got some that look a little different than that too.
Yep.
Talk about what that was like for you. What it did for you, because I'm sure that you had to go through some periods of, I'm just not sure I can keep going.
Oh, yeah.
You know, ready to give up, kind of pushing through the darkness.
Yeah, if someone had told me it was going to be 8 years, that might have been enough to say, never mind.
If you'd have known.
If I'd have known in advance. On the other hand, it was such a passion, I don't know if I really would have stopped. But there was one point I submitted... there's a League of Utah Writers that has a contest, a statewide contest every year. And 2 years in a row, I got second place in the novel category. And so I was feeling pretty good about myself. So the next year I entered again, and I did not even get an honorable mention. And the judge just tore my work apart. And every possible bad cliche about writing. You did this wrong, you did this wrong. And might as well have said, do you speak English? Because it was so bad. And the only positive the judge said was, at least you have some perseverance because you completed a full manuscript. But this is my 7th manuscript I had completed, and I had published a few articles by this point. So I knew I wasn't a complete amateur, but those comments were so devastating at that point that I completely fell apart. I didn't write for 2 months. I thought, I can't do this. Who am I kidding? I'm so, because at that point I thought I was going to succeed, and then I got slapped down so hard. And that was the first time in our entire marriage that it was not Valentine's Day or anniversary that my husband sent me flowers, because I was completely having a breakdown.
Trying to rescue you from somewhere.
And he's like, you can't stop. You'll regret it forever if you do. And okay, fine, you're right. So I picked myself up and I thought, okay, something is wrong with this book. I don't know what, but there's something wrong. And it can't be as bad as the judge said, but there's something wrong. So I took another look at it, and some hard revisions and looking at it, and I just did some surgery on it. And then I had this aha moment when I realized one point in the story where I took a wrong turn, and I fixed that. And then, there were other things. I submitted that book, and that was my first book accepted. And that was huge. And there were some other little, speed bumps along the way to that point. But when I got that phone call from the editor welcoming me aboard, I just about flew through the roof. I think my voice was nice and calm. Oh, thank you. That's so wonderful. Thank you for calling. And then I hung up and screamed, and I ran up the stairs. My husband was still home. He was going in late to work that day. And I burst into tears and told him I had gotten the call. And at that point I had a 2-year-old daughter, and she was like freaking out because mom's crying. And I'm like, I'm happy. And she couldn't understand why there's tears, and mommy's happy. What? So my husband called his manager and said, I'm not coming into work. I'm taking my wife out to lunch. And so we celebrated, and that was fun.
Oh, wonderful.
And so, the successes are huge. And I never get tired of it, because every time you do submit a book, you don't know how the public will receive it. Or maybe my publisher won't want this one, or whatever it is. And then you do get that acceptance, or you see your cover for the first time with the wrapper of your baby. And that's a huge moment. And then you'll get reader emails that say, this book affected me in this way, or this one changed my life in this fashion, or whatever. And those are just, I seriously, I print every one of those off and stick them in a binder for when I have those down days. I can open it up and reread that,
Remind yourself
I
of
actually
the
have
reasons.
had some success, and I've impacted someone's life for the better. And I've reached those people who are my audience, who do care, who the ones I am writing for. And that audience is increasing. I'm finding more and more people that net is getting spread wider. And so that's exciting. And so when I won the Best of State medal for fiction a couple of years ago, and I was a Whitney Award finalist. And anytime you get those moments of success, I savor those. Absolutely. They're huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Just as I'm to make a comment, I cough. I'm just thinking that those little paydays are what remind you of your purpose and why you're doing this in the first place. And then you keep going, but you already love it. So that's enough reason to do it.
Yeah.
But as you start to do what you love for the people who love what you do, and then they start telling other people who they know would love what you do too, that's the power of networking.
Absolutely.
And you begin to get a following. Is this a little weird for you?
It is. It's very odd to realize I do have a following. People say, "Oh, I'm familiar with your name." Really? No. Are you serious? Oh yeah, I read your books.
How do I know you?
No way. And that's it's exciting that there's a following. Yeah.
I read a book recently by Seth Godin, and it's called Tribes, and I'd actually recommend that to you.
I'll have to look it up.
He's not a high-level writer like you are, but he has a heck of a following, and he talks about this this concept of creating a tribe. Well, your tribe already exists. They're just out there wandering around without a leader. And when you show up and share your gifts and you become that person that they can follow, whether it's through your literature or through the gifts that you uniquely have to share, whatever it is, as people start sharing their gifts, and their tribe shows up to follow them. Yeah, and that might sound a little weird, but this is absolutely what's happening.
Yeah, that rings true. Absolutely, yeah.
So some of you listeners may be thinking, well, Annette Lyon, of course she has a following. She's a publisher. Or Dr. Paul, the shrink who expands your life. Well, we didn't just, wake up one day and say, well, we're going to go out there and have a following.
No, it's Well, my first book came out in 2002, and nobody knew who I was at that point. It took even creating that following takes work.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
and following those steps, and so I think we've had a good conversation about what some of those steps are. Identify your passion. There's a reason why you have the dreams and the desires and the passions that you have.
Right. Absolutely.
And that means something. So take it seriously and start playing the game. As much as it terrifies you, get in.
Yeah, and sometimes that means making a sacrifice or two. I have a friend who was a fabulous seamstress, and she decided that writing was more important, so she hung up her sewing machine. And I have friends who I watch very little television, but that's because I decided that writing is more important. I have to decide, well, there's my family. That's more important than anything. But then I have to decide what else can go. And because I have to make room for my passion. And it's not going to be made room for unless I do it.
And all of that other stuff may be important and it may be fun and you may have some reasons to do that too. But when you really engage in your passion and when you figure out how to bring that, it creates more value for more people. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Whether my own followers, my own readers, but even my own family. There's been times where I remember there was about a 4-week, maybe a longer period where I couldn't get to my critique group for whatever reason, whether it was soccer games or a sick child or whatever. I had missed several weeks in a row. And there was one of our children, I guess, was coming down with another fever. And I said, I guess I better stay home again. And my husband looked at me and he said, I need my wife back. Would you please go to critique group tonight?
Go do your thing.
Because he knows that when I invest in my passion and I hang around those people who are like me, then I am a better person. I am a better mother. I'm a better wife. I am more my authentic self when I invest in that.
And then that's how you show up in all of your relationships.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
So that's one of the points that I think we could underscore is that it's not just about you. It's not just about you getting what you want. Because when you engage at this level, you start to show up differently for the people in your family, for the people who are closest to you, for all of those people who are following you who couldn't follow you if you didn't show up.
Right. Yeah, there's no tribal leader if you don't show up.
Who's going to lead your tribe, Annette? It's your tribe.
And everyone has a tribe. I love that.
And
I love
everyone
that idea.
has one. And it doesn't mean that you're some grand guru of something. It just means that you're showing up and sharing your gifts that nobody else can share for you.
Right, because everybody has their own gifts. Absolutely, right.
To withhold those means that you're not sharing them with people who value them the most.
Right, and you can benefit from them. Yeah.
So we could really go deep here.
That's really cool.
Into
I
all
like
the
this
philosophy,
idea.
huh? Well, Annette, I would really love to get people pointed in the right direction to connect with you, because some of the people who are listening are going to feel a connection to you just from sharing your story, and they're going to want to read your books and just see what it is that you're doing out there. What's the best way for people to get connected with you?
They can go to my website, which is AnnetteLyon.com, and from there you can find my blog and all my books.
So you got links to everything there?
Yeah, and including the charity that I'm working with that supports military families called the Flat Daddy Project. There's links there too.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, and that ties right into your last book, Band of Sisters.
Right, exactly.
And for those of you who are in military families, I think you're going to enjoy this. But even if that context isn't the same as you have in your own family, what we've talked about here in terms of networking and friendships, and especially with women,
right?
I think
powerful.
This book will speak to them.
I think so.
So the website again is AnnetteLyon.com, ANNETTE, and then Lyon, LYON, with no S.
Right. No S.
Did we get it? So
That's right.
AnnetteLyon.com. There's only one Lyon, and it's spelled with a Y.
Yeah.
And they can connect with everything else that you're doing through that website.
Exactly.
There's links and
contact information and all that. Yep.
Contact. They can bother you. They can
email
send
me
their
and
critiques.
Whatever. Yep.
They can love your stuff. They can hate your stuff and
find
share
my
it with you.
blog, all that good stuff. Yep.
Annette, thank you so much for being here at Live on Purpose
Thanks,
Radio
Dr. Paul.
today.
Appreciate it.
Everybody go out there and live on purpose.